Imagine this. You pour months of your life into creating a video game. It passes all the approvals, gets age rated, it's ready to launch, and then one day before the release of it, Nintendo pulls it from their store. Well, that's exactly what happened to an indie game called The Great Rebellion Edition 2084. It was a politically satirical cyberpunk roguelike that had already won fans over on Steam. And yeah, it's raising a lot of questions about censorship, corporate pressure, and who actually decides what can or cannot appear on consoles. It's wild. It was a day before its release, guys. So that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Make sure you buckle up, get yourself a little snacky, drinky, and hit that subscription button. So what is the Great Rebellion? Well, to be honest, I hadn't even heard of it, but apparently it released on Steam in early 2024. It's a twin stick mouse and keyboard roguelike shooter. The premise, a dystopian cyberpunk future where global corporations control everything and humanity's last hope is rebellion. So that sounds kind of cool, right? Players take on the role of human 1028, fighting not just for survival, but for the freedom of Europa itself. Each run is different with new challenges, weapons, and strategies. It's political, it's clever, and apparently it was too edgy for Nintendo. Now, I don't hear of Nintendo pulling games off their eShops too often. In fact, that's what caught my attention on this. I saw a few people talking about it, Side Scrollers, Smash JT, just to name a few. And this is where it gets messy. This is the controversy here. Nintendo apparently pulled the game from the Switch eShop just one day before its planned release. The official reason being they said that the content in this game could damage Nintendo's reputation or brand. That is a absolute first for me to have ever heard that. The game had been reviewed. It was approved. It was rated for ages 12 plus. The team had even toned down political satire in it to comply with guidelines for Nintendo of America, because we can't have anybody getting offended on the Twitter mob, right? Nintendo of Europe, Nintendo of America, all of them said no, and they rejected this game. But apparently in Japan, the game is still live. So based Japan W, if you have a Nintendo Switch, you can buy it from the Japan eShop because it is region free digitally. But I want to know is if it's good enough for Japan, how come it's not good enough for Europe or America, apparently? What gives? What was so damaging to the reputation of Nintendo? So now I wanted to share this post from the Kotaku and Action Reddit. This is Roland himself from the Cult Games. And they published this saying, we self-censored our anti-woke indie game for Nintendo Switch. They approved it, then pulled it one day before launch anyway. So this is a really in-depth thread if you want to go and read it on there. And it gives a lot of insight as to what happened, saying they pulled their game about a day before its release. The situation is a cause of arbitrary censorship that really puts us in a tight spot now. So yes, our PC game satirizes wokeness, and we knew that probably wouldn't fly on Nintendo, so we made Edition 2084 of it, a toned-down version for Switch. We were confident the game could stand on its own merits, also without the political commentary. We removed all the overt political references and made it just more or less a game about a standard cyberpunk dystopia and technocratic control. I don't understand. It makes no sense, guys. He goes on to say, we passed Nintendo's lot check, got approved, store pages went live. Then one day before release, we get a message from Nintendo of America and Europe saying, upon reviewing, Nintendo has determined that it contains content that can be damaging to its reputation or brand. To make the whole situation even more absurd and confusing, the game is still up in the Japanese shop. We literally complied with everything, self-censored. They saw the tame version and approved it, then they killed it anyway. Personally, I think it's less about content and instead about who we are. This is tough for us. We're a small team. My wife is due with a baby in about a week. We put months of work, money into this port, which has now pretty much just been burned away. So, definitely a sad situation if you want to go check this out. I don't know what to make out of this. Why should we care, right? Because, of course, there's always the little anime avatars in the chat. Why should I care? It doesn't affect me, you my pussy. Well, guys, this isn't just about one developer that's an indie dev getting blocked, okay? It's a perfect example of how corporate influence, political sensitivity, potential external pressure, like people on the outside are are basically forcing this kind of censorship, this behavior where it can override formal approved systems, like basically it being age rated, it being approved for the eShop. The devs of this game, The Great Rebellion, they're not a big studio. They're literally a small indie team of about like 10 or so people. Two of them apparently were about to have newborns. They invested months of work, marketing, and money into this launch. And then right there, boom, it's been completely stopped. Like they've been completely shut out of the Western market overnight because Nintendo just decided to do it the day before. Now, the developer side, because there is two sides to every story. Stuttering Craig said they spoke with Roland from Cold Games, who's the studio behind The Great Rebellion, and they explained that Nintendo's review was already passed, the age rating was set, and they even self-censored all overt political satire to meet Nintendo's guidelines. So it looks like they went above and beyond, but for some reason the rug was still pulled from under them. And Roland from Cold Games suspects the issue isn't the game itself, that it might be outside pressure from advocacy groups, which wouldn't surprise me at all. You see them all over Twitter, all these art activists that cosplay as journalists and people that are caring for the gaming industry, but they really want to just push their narratives. Or he thinks it's government entities or other organizations that are unhappy with the studio's European political references and early versions. But so far, Nintendo hasn't even clarified to them which content triggered the ban. That is weird. So just a generic statement saying it could be harmful to the reputation or brand of Nintendo, and then they're not really telling you what it was, even though you've already apparently toned it down. You've made some adjustments. It was approved for the ratings of 12 plus. There's got to be something more behind the scenes that we're not being told, something a little bit more, I would dare say, somebody is definitely outside pressure. Somebody involved is smearing them possibly. This could be a bigger story than what we're being led on. And it is two sides to every story. So right now, Nintendo hasn't made an official statement. I think this is something that could definitely gain some traction, though. If enough noise is made about this, we'll see where it goes. But there's clearly a double standard, and that's where it gets infuriating. You know, Nintendo allows other games with far more controversial or mature content on the Switch, right? Games with sexualized content, violence, extreme humor. And I'm not going to be a Tommy Tallarico and say that the Switch is full of games with rape, right? Because it's not. But there is some games out there that are very, very, very mature and violent on there. So what gives? Where's this great line at? Meanwhile, Great Rebellion, which was a mostly harmless cyberpunk story that was rated 12 plus, it wasn't even rated teen or mature, gets pulled. The inconsistency in this whole situation is raising questions. Is this about the content, or is it about who the developers are? Does somebody at Nintendo or elsewhere not like the developers on this team? Which toes did they step on to get it rug pulled a day before? This is wild. Like, I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on this because this situation highlights a broader tension between indie devs and platform holders, right? Age ratings, content guidelines, corporate reputation often collide with artistic expression. It's a tale as old as time. It even goes into movies. Even when devs comply with every requirement, external pressures could still override approvals. It's a cautionary tale. And especially for small studios, because sometimes success isn't enough to guarantee that your game will even see the light of death. Again, this came out on Steam over a year ago. It was doing great on it. So what's the reason? And then how come Japan still has it listed? That's the weirdest part. And then they're not even telling them how to fix it or how to get it on there. And it's just overall a weird case right here. So what do you guys think? Should Nintendo clarify exactly what content they found objectionable? I sure as fuck think they should. Is this a case of over censorship, or is it just corporate risk management? And most importantly, do you want to support these devs? Do you want to go and grab a copy of this game on Steam? Apparently they have a Patreon as well. So if you want to check that out, throw them a few bucks, because again, it is a team of about 10 people. This story clearly is not over, guys. I'm going to be keeping an eye on this because the situation just has something weird about it. Small teams with big ideas and then sudden corporate shutdowns. Something's not adding up here, guys. But that is the reality of indie gaming in 2025. I'm going to leave it right there. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you're not subscribed yet, push that subscription. I'll see you on the next one, guys. Thank you for watching.